Okay, welcome. Pashas Vaera Tafshin Pei Dalet. Zvat Hashem. Okay, so I told Yitzi this. I had like one very small important thing to say, and then a whole Torah, and then I realized that really the small little important thing to say is the Torah. So we're gonna get just one thing, but it's anyway. So there's a pasuk in it's Vav Kaf Zayin. Okay, Haim Hamedabrim El Paroi Melech Mitzrayim Lohoitzias Bnei Yisrael Mitzrayim Hu Moshe ve'Aaron. Okay, so it's Moshe and Aaron. They were the ones who spoke to Paro, and they were the ones that came to take Bnei Yisrael Mitzrayim. Moshe and Aaron. And Rashi says Hu Moshe ve'Aaron. He's addressing the extra Hu Moshe Aaron. Haim b'shlichusam v'tzidkosam. They were in their shlichus and in their tzidkus from the beginning to the end, meaning they were just givoldit. Sorry, they were givoldit from the beginning to the end. Yeah, but he divides them into two. He talks about their shlichus and their tzidkus, their mission and their righteousness. And we have to make a distinction in our lives. This is such an important idea. We have what's called our tough kid, and we have what's called our avoider. Our tough kid can actually be carried out by somebody else. I always give the example of Noah Weinberg Zatzal. If he didn't make Eisha Torah, you think Hashem couldn't, that you think Eisha Torah wouldn't be? You think Hashem would not have made sure that Eisha Torah came into existence? That was his tough kid. His tough kid was to bring Eisha Torah into reality, and he did so, Baruch Hashem. But that's not his avoider. The avoider is the inner work that goes with you everywhere you are, and only you can do your avoider. If you aren't working on breaking your midas, on turning, on becoming what you're meant to be internally, then Hashem's kind of got his hands behind his back. If you're not taking care of your children, yeah, then see, that's the children and wives becomes, if it's avoided, tough kid becomes debatable. But if you're not working on becoming more internally aligned with the Avodah Shalom, then what does he do? Whereas if you're not building the yeshiva that you are destined to build, well, then he'll just get somebody else to build it. Not that we shouldn't be doing our tough kid, but we need to make a distinction. And the real distinction is like this. If a person is fulfilling his tough kid and he's building the yeshiva that he's destined to build, yeah, that's not what it's about. That's a very external level of his reason of being in the world. That's the external reason why he's in the world. But the avoider, the inner avoider, the Muhammad Yetza, yeah, grappling with yourself and bringing yourself, working on yourself to get to a more aligned inner reality. Yeah, that's the avoider of being Jewish. Okay? So just remember those two words, tough kid and avoider. And now we'll see how this ties in with what I was going to say otherwise. So we say in Yaakov, Mishkan. One of the first things we say in the morning, yeah, one of the psukim is Va'ani shtechave, and I will bow, Echra, I will bow, Evroch, I'll do another kind of bow, Lifnei Hashem Oisi, in front of Hashem, my maker. The question that I really want to ask is, what's with the dumb? Why was the first plague dumb? Okay, it's had a whole bunch of questions, but we're just going to ask that question. What about muckers? That, I mean, all the plagues are kind of wacky, yeah. I mean, the concept of plague bichlal is a bit wacky, but dumb, and dumb was much more miraculous than frogs, than lice, than anything else. Dumb was like mamash a miracle. Yeah, lots of frogs. I mean, you get frog infestations, you get locust infestations, you get wild animals sometimes, you know. I'm sure it didn't seem natural, but dumb was completely, that was just, how does water turn to blood? And what was the thing? Okay, so in chapter 22 of the Tanya, when the Rebbe is explaining Klipa, he tells you that Paro said, Li ori v'ani asisoni. I own the Nile and I made myself. Now, this is one statement, but these two ideas, I made the Nile and I own myself. This is the Klipa. The whole Klipa, the whole concept of Klipa Sitra Achra is defined in those two concepts. I own the Nile and I made myself. So what does that mean? What's going on? So the point is the two concepts contained within I own the Nile and I made myself is the concept of ownership. The two levels of ownership. Number one, I own stuff. I own the Nile. And number two, I own myself. I didn't make myself. I made myself. Whereas by us, we said, Lifnei Hashem oisi, before Hashem my maker. Big difference between a Jew and a non-Jew is that the Jew is owned, so to speak. The non-Jew isn't owned in the same way. We belong to Ribbono Shel Olam. So Rashi says, my river, Li Oiri, I own the Nile, means Eini Tzarich Le'elyonim, Ki Yesh Li Oiri, must be called Saki. I own the Nile, it's enough for my needs, I'm taken care of. That's the inyan of ownership. I own this, I own that, I own this, and that makes me self-reliant, and it's an inyan of making myself bigger. Then there's Aniasi Sisani. It says that Bigvuasi of Chachmasi, with my Gvura and my Chochma, Higdalti, Gudlasi, Mamshalti, I made greater my greatness and my Mamshala, my dominion. Yeah. It's the same idea again, but it's the inyan of solidifying who I am. If I didn't make myself, if I made myself, think of the difference philosophically between a person who realized he was made and a person who feels that he made himself. You realize what an ultimate difference that is? That's really what atheism is coming to say. Atheism is coming to say, well, I don't know how we came here. So that's basically saying I made myself. Imagine, a friend of mine said this to me one time, imagine computers become conscious, yeah? They develop consciousness. Yeah, my friend said like this, he said to me like this, imagine what the first computer who becomes conscious would say to the next computer who became conscious. He'd say, look at it. He'd bring up all these pictures of Apple computers from the 80s and then calculators from the 50s. And then he'd go back to the abacus back in the times of the ancient times. And he'd say, this is what happened. This is how we came to be. Originally, we were abacuses. And then we developed, a little bit further, became a little bit more sophisticated. Then there was this big thing, electricity came in, and then things just started really heating up. And then there was the internet exploded, and this is how it came to be. It would be the first thing you could imagine the computers doing is trying to prove that they made themselves, that they aren't a creation of mankind. It's just a thought. You can imagine that would be probably one of the first things that they would try to do. So this is the idea of the Klipa. The Klipa says that I own and I am not owned. An Eved, on the other hand, so there's two kinds of Evadim. There's a regular Eved. Now, all his possessions belong to his Baal, to the Rav. But he still has a baalus over himself. That's a regular Eved. Then there's what's called an Eved Nirtza, which is the Eved, you remember in Parshas Mishpatim, the one who doesn't want to leave, and then you take his right ear, and you put a thing through to the doorpost, yeah? So when Antigas Soichoi says, Antigas Soichoi, Kiba Meshimon Tzadik, who hire Omer? Everyone remembers, Pirkei Avos. Yeah, the third mission, Pirkei Avos. Hire Omer. Al Tika Avadim Masham Shmes Rav Al Manas the Kabul Pras. Don't be like the servants who serve their Rav to receive reward. Be like the servants who serve their Rav not to receive reward. The Kli Yocha, the Yochim, the Tfes Yisrael says on that it's referring to an Eved Nirtza. An Eved Nirtza basically says, I don't want to leave my Baal. I've worked for you for 6 years, and I'm so thoroughly identified with you. My sense of self is so bound up in you, Master. I can't imagine being away from you. He's serving Lo Almanas the Kabul Pras. And that's actually a human. That's the level, that's the highest level of the human. That he realizes it's a human. That's why they put the ear to the doorpost. I'm not going to get into that, but the ear is to do with logic, and that's our human side. The human part of us hears, the neshama sees, so to speak. So anyway, that's a side point. But the highest level we can get to as a human being is realizing that we belong to him. He owns us. Not just that he owns all of our things. Like that doesn't take so much. That's still quite a madrega to realize that everything you have belongs to him, but to realize that you don't really have, because the you also belongs to him. You're his. And that's what Paro was going against. Paro was saying, I own the Nile, I own things, but even deeper than that, I made myself. Comes along the Makkahs, yeah? The whole point of the Makkahs was to disassemble the Klippa, to break down the Klippa that had accumulated since Ma'aser Bereshis, or was Ma'aser Bereshis, either way. So he turns the water to blood. What happens? The Medrash says, famous Medrash, is that all the Mitzrim, anyone remembers, how did the Mitzrim get to drink?
Bought it from the Jews.
What?
They bought water from the Jews?
They brought water from the Jews. They brought the water from the Nile. Hashem, it's like a God joke. He made it like a joke. You think you own the Nile, yeah? You can't own it. No one owns the Nile. You would never need to pay to take water from the Nile. But and by the way, dam is Loshen money. Damim is money. Yeah, that I've worked it out, says Rabbeinu Shalom, that you're now going to need to buy the water from the Yidden. You think you own the Nile? Yeah, not even close. In fact, I'm going to show you that you don't own the Nile by making you buy the water from the Nile from the Yidden. That was the original, that was the first breaking of that level of Klippa, where you think you own something. No. The final Makkah, yeah, this is the Makkah B'Patish. The final Makkah was Makkah's B'choros, yeah? Everyone knows that the B'chor belongs to Hashem. So by the final Makkah, Hashem's saying, by dam I showed you that you don't own anything. By the final Makkah, he's saying, you don't even own yourself. That was the completion of the breaking of the Klippa. You with me? So now just to see how important this idea is, we're nearly finished, and just see how important this idea is the Aseret Adibros, okay? Which is also to do with the Eser Makkahs and the Eser Maimorim that was created the world. Obviously 10 and 10 and 10. The Aseret Adibros divide into two sections. You can split them into a bunch of ways, but the most basic way is the first 5 are Bein Adam L'Makom, and the second 5 are Bein Adam L'Chaveroi. Yeah, between man and God and between man and man. Now we know that the end of the list, that when we have a list of something, the final one on the list always encapsulates all of the list. So you've got these two lists of 5, yeah? The first one is Bein Adam Makom, the second one is Bein Adam Chavei. So let's go to the second set first. Loy Sachmoid. Don't covet. I don't know what that word means. Loy Sachmoid. Yeah, don't be jealous of your neighbor. Why? Because you don't own anything. No one owns anything. This whole concept of baalus, of owning something, is an illusion that you've come up with in your mind. Yeah, who koiner koil? He owns everything. That's Bein Adam Chaveiroi. What's the fifth of the? What's the final one of Bein Adam Makoim?
Is it don't share Hashem's name in vain, or is that for Shabbos? Not Shabbos.
Shabbos. What's number 5?
Kibbud Avim.
Ah,
You didn't make yourself. This is the shorish of the entire Torah. This is our avodah, getting this clear. Is number 1, all the things that you own, they're not yours, they're his. That includes your personality, that includes all the skills that you have, all the ways that you think, everything, and all the bad stuff as well. It all belongs to him, it's all his. Yeah? But more than that, the one who has all those things, that's also his. That's the Aseres HaDibros. The first 5 culminate in Kibbud Avim. You did not make yourself. You belong to him. The you belongs to him. And on the external level, it's backwards to the Makkahs because it's the Kedusha. And on the external level, yeah, Lo Sachmoid it's all his and my. Everything belongs to him anyway. And how does that tie in with your tough kid and your avoider? This is the whole Indian. Tough kid is from Loshan Nifkad. Tough kid is the things that he's given you. That's you giving the things he's given you to Hashem. So Rav Noach Weinberg had this amazing ability to speak, this amazing ability to fundraise, this visionary. Those were all things he had. And he gave them all to Rabbeinu Sholem, and now the world's Zeicha to Eisha Torah. That's tough kid. But avoider is who you are. No one knows what his avoider was like. No one knows. That's just between you and God. But we have 2 things going on, yeah? So we have to realize that everything we own is his, but that's just the first stage. Where we're really trying to get to is realizing that the one that owns all that stuff, me, is owned by him. Aaron, just in time for a bracha. We should be Zeicha B'ezrat Hashem to get this clear. And you can catch the rerun. It might be worth it.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay, everyone should have a good
Rabbi, really quickly, was it a pasuk that Paro says, "I made myself and I own the Nile River"?
Pasuk in Nach. I'll tell you the quote. Thank you for asking that. It's from it's Yechezkel. There's actually 2 quotes. They're both in Yechezkel and in each other, but the main one is Yechezkel 29:3. Kaf Tes Shlosh. And it's, by the way, just Yitzi, to tie it into our Limud Yomi, is you're gonna read Yeshayahu today, I think, tomorrow. Yeah, beginning to go. The very first psukim of Yeshayahu says like this, Chazon. It's from Tisha B'Av, yeah, Chazon. The third pasuk says Yada. No, shor kone. So Yada shor konehu. A shore, an ox knows its owner. The chamor avuz ba'alav, and a chamor knows its owner. Yisrael lo yada, ami lo yisboinei, and Yisrael forgot that we are owned. That's really something that we should be working on, and it's contrary to all secular psychology. And it's not for the goyim; it's for us to realize that we mamash belong to the Rabbeinu Sholem. Ani ledoidi, ledoidi li. He belongs to us as well, just like we belong to him. He belongs to us. We're just one. That's Kudsha B'Rich Shchinte, and that's the chasna that's going to be very soon, B'ezrat Hashem. Okay, Shbizoicha.
Rabbi.
Okay.
Good Shabbos. Gimlo Shchodesh.
Chodesh.